I hate this car. I hate it so much. I hate the suspension that would have you believe you're driving a boat whenever you're trying to take a corner faster than 5 miles an hour. I hate the gearbox that feels like dragging a rake through a pile of gravel. I hate the thin layer of sweat that covers my body whenever I try to join a road faster than 20 miles an hour with this car's utterly limp 1.2 litre engine. Watch this 0 to 60 time, alright? This is gonna blow your mind. I hate the smell of bird shit that still lingers to this day after my brother drove it under a bridge with the windows open only to have a flock of pigeons unload their rectum into the driver's side window. I hate the robot woman who tells you how to use the Bluetooth every time that you connect to it.
Please enter the PIN code shown on the radio display into your mobile phone.
But above all else, I hate all of these effectively government mandated 1.whatever-the-litre eco-box boxes that so many of us on this sad, moist little island have been systematically forced into by our grossly self-righteous government and accompanying fraudulent car insurance companies who believe owning any car with any engine bigger than a litre may as well make you a Mustang driver. To be clear, I use the word hate in a hyperbolic manner. Ultimately, this car performs its task well. It gets from point A to point B, it costs little to run, and with how tight many of our roads and parking spaces are, a smaller car reduces a lot of headaches in this country. I don't hate anything or anyone. I am a being of peace, and I'm also slipping off of this f***ing hood. But if I was to hate something, it would be this sad little soybean on wheels. I hate this car, not just because it looks, drives and smells like shit, but because it's a literal encapsulation of our current state of motoring here in the UK. The Golfs, the Clios, the Corsas, the Pandas, the Pumas, the Puntos, the Jaegers, the Twingos, the Fiat 500s, God save their souls, and of course, the f***ing Fiestas. They're everywhere, and not because anyone really wants to drive them. You see, the UK government, through progressively rising road tax and ever-rising car insurance that is enforced by law here, has effectively forced the majority of our motoring population into an eco-box like this one. These cars are reflective of what our government thinks of us as motorists, that we are to be untrusted with anything beyond what is basically an adult baby buggy. I mean, seriously, spot the difference. And by extension, our population of motorists are developing a driving ability no greater than that of a baby. So before I divulge any further into my schizophrenia-induced motoring rant, if you'd like to support my naive, youthful, independent journalism, you can join my Patreon at patreon.com/gethip. Come on! YouTube pays me for this UK slander, so I'm effectively reliant on your funding. I literally wouldn't have the funds to even produce this video right here without you guys, so thank you so much. There's also exclusive content on there and some stuff about my Subaru and the engine rebuild and the modifications I've done to it if you're interested in car stuff. patreon.com/gethip. Okay, so despite the obnoxiously rigorous driving lessons and tests that we're subject to here, you wouldn't be blamed for thinking that there were none when so many still can't indicate properly when coming off of a roundabout or don't know what a f***ing giveaway is, like this Clio driver who destroyed my friend Leon's Subaru. If you look at the cars that make the majority of these mistakes on the road, that get into the majority of these accidents, it's overwhelmingly the EcoBox cars. In 2023, the Vauxhall Adam was the most likely car to be involved in an accident here in the UK. In fact, 37% of all Vauxhall Adams on the road have some history of accident. In second place was the Volkswagen Beetle, and in third place was the Volkswagen Up. Actually, all of the most frequently damaged cars in 2023 were eco-boxes. The Peugeot 208, the Vauxhall Corsa, the Fiat Ibiza, the Ford Fiesta, you know, the usual suspects. Hell, even the car featured in this infamous road safety ad, wiping out these kids, is an eco-box. Now obviously you can argue that these EcoBox cars are the most frequently involved in accidents because they're the most abundant on the road to begin with. And that's definitely a big contributing factor. But how many of these accidents are actually caused because these cars fundamentally encourage shit driving? Their soft, boaty suspension, their emphasis on driver comfort, their mushy brakes, their overly forgiving clutch, their numb and forgiving electronic steering, the lack of power, the floppy gearbox, the sound deadening that isolates you from the rest of the road for the sake of user comfort, the obnoxious smart screens built into all of the newer models. All of these things contribute to lazy, unengaged driving. I drive a 2007 WRX STI. I'm only subject to driving this baby buggy when my Subaru is broken, which only so happens to be when the speed sensor needs to be replaced, or the thermostat needs replacing, or when it's overheating, or when the engine's blown up, or when the engine's being rebuilt, or when it's overheating again. Oh my fucking god, you go. When it works, I use it as my daily. The thin Japanese doors that rattle, that let you hear the road beneath you, the tight suspension, the exhaust noise, the chunky gearbox, the heavy hydraulic steering that lets you feel every imperfection on the road, the satisfying clicky indicators, the bare bones interior, the clutch control and rev matching required to drive it remotely smoothly. All of these things contribute to a focused and engaged driving experience. It's very difficult to drive that car in a passive manner. It's you and the road, not you and your touchscreen trying to play espresso for the billionth time. Despite the fact that I put a massive touchscreen in that motherfucker anyway, but that is besides the point. And this isn't to say that you need a 350 horsepower Subaru for a more raw driving experience. You could get an old Fiesta, or an old Civic, or a Miata, or an old Astra, or literally anything that was built prior to this eco-focused, comfort-focused slop that we're subject to now. Driving should be a deeply serious experience. I mean, you should feel vulnerable when driving, not isolated and comforted. You're driving a multi-ton hunk of metal at potentially fatal speeds after all. It should require your engagement. It should require your respect, something that none of these cars are remotely conducive of. No wonder they end up as the most crashed. Not to mention the electric SUVs that our government has encouraged much of our population into, with EVs up until recently being exempt from road tax and exempt from ultra-low emission cameras, and popularized even further with low-cost finance schemes. If our government and respective insurance companies want us out of sports cars or older cars for the sake of road safety or protecting the public from harmful exhaust gases, then why the fuck are they encouraging the general public, most of which can't drive competently to begin with, to get behind the wheel of a silent 2,000 kilogram tank with a 0 to 60 time of 4.2 seconds? In fact, electric and hybrid cars are already twice as likely to hit a pedestrian over traditional petrol cars. And when they do, it's usually much more likely to be fatal due to their ridiculous weight and acceleration. I mean, what's the point in improving local air quality when, at this rate, there won't be any pedestrians left to benefit from it? Anyway, if you do dare to drive here on our heavily policed, average speed enforced roads, you must also bear the wrath of our wonderfully progressive government, who will tax you into your grave for daring to drive anything that emits more carbon than your mother's cheeks after some dodgy Indian takeaway. I've detailed in prior videos how my Subaru, despite being a 2.5 litre boxer engine, falls into the second highest road tax bracket because of its emissions. The UK government would have you believe I drive a f***ing Komatsu bulldozer with the £735 they charge me annually just to have the privilege of driving it legally on our roads. Whereas the Fiesta is about £160 to insure annually. Even less if you have a lower spec version. These are the current UK road tax VED bands. A given car will fall into one of these categories based on its carbon output and will be charged a set annual fee. An annual fee the UK government continues to raise year after year because of course they do. The jump in road tax from road tax band K, so cars that emit between 201 to 225 grams of CO2 per kilometre, versus road tax band L, that my Subaru falls into, is insane. It jumps from £430 to £735. It's not actually that we emit some crazy amount of CO2, it's just that the government have strategically placed this road tax net to catch as many of us at once for being just over the band K limit. Prior to band L, you can see this increase in tax is quite linear, going up incrementally with the respective CO2 increase. So why isn't it the same here? Why is there such an insane jump? I I mean, it's not about emissions. It's not about saving the planet or improving local air quality. I think the government are just leveraging the tall poppy syndrome that this country suffers with to alienate car enthusiasts from the general public, to point fingers at us like we're some utterly selfish, dangerous health threat in an attempt to siphon an abhorrent amount of money out of us that is in no way comparable to the actual emissions that we produce, especially when the annual road tax isn't even representative of the miles that we drive. I only do a couple thousand miles a year in my Subaru, and I'm still subject to a flat £735 annual fee. I'm paying hundreds more than someone who could be doing 10,000 miles a year in a Fiesta, and ultimately emitting far more than what my Subaru does in a year. But since so much of the general public is oblivious to this, because they've known nothing other than the eco-box rat race, the government can repeatedly get away with such an insane yearly fee without too much public scrutiny. It's the enthusiasts, and believe it or not, the elderly, that this affects the most. Poor old Susan, who's kept her 1996 Vauxhall Astra in perfect condition for over 20 years, will suddenly be forced into an EV because the annual road tax cost for the 1996 Astra has hit £360 a year. It's such an utterly moronic, short-sighted and flat-out dangerous attitude to road tax that will result in killing people. How is it safer for the general public for 87-year-old Susan to be behind the wheel of a silent, nearly 500 horsepower electric 2-ton SUV than an old 100-ish horsepower Vauxhall Astra from 1996? This is like giving a machine gun to a chimp. Sorry, Susan. I appreciate that I may come across as pretty ungrateful in this video. After all, I am fortunate enough to have 2 cars at my disposal. I should be thankful to have the privilege to even drive, and even more so to have a choice of cars to do it in. But simultaneously, England isn't a third world country, or at least wasn't up until recently. It's not a huge ask in 2025 to have the right to drive something more than just a bean on wheels without being taxed and insured into the fucking ground. I mean, at least we can still drive. I mean, I don't know how many years we have left of this freedom as we travel down this current fraudulent, eco-friendly, totalitarian path that we're on currently. If you drive an EcoBox, I hope you're not too burnt by this video. I'm honestly not trying to bum you out. Part of why we're even in this position, why it's gotten as bad as it has, is because we're suffering from our parents' generation's complacency. The whole driving's a privilege, not a right ideology. I am sick of hearing it. With the amount of money that we pay for this privilege, driving almost certainly should be a right. Many of us have to drive because of our personal circumstance, so we shouldn't be treated like we're a group of polluting, spoilt brats for wanting to drive to work without being taxed and insured almost more than what we're paid at this point. The generations before us thought they were letting the government take an inch for the sake of the environment, and instead they have taken a fucking mile. If we're to stand any chance in course correcting, the first step is at least acknowledging the world of taxation hell that they've sleptwalked into. I have much more to say about the UK driving scene. If you'd like to hear it, like this video, subscribe, and if you want to pay for my Subaru's failed thermostat, you can join my Patreon at patreon.com/gethip. Anyway, I suppose I'm off to go and get gapped by an 87-year-old in an electric SUV. So, bye-bye. Long months later, I feel better. I try to take it.